which I let everyone know. Okay, excellent. We're recording now. So I'm going to share my screen with you. And also I can send this presentation out to all you guys as well, so you can take a look at it at a slower pace. So here we are. That's the Spanish one. Okay. All right. So again, my name is Ms. Feeney. I am the counselor at the school if we haven't met yet. I know all of your students through advisory, and this is something that we've started to talk about with them. I actually got some feedback from our 8th grade students that they said, get started with those 7th graders as soon as possible. And they were also making me laugh. They said, be more strict with them, that I have to hold them very accountable to this process. But it's really because early in the fall, this comes very quickly. And you'll see as we talk about the timeline through things, the reason for that. So as Ms. V was saying with us, you know, I'm going to present tonight as if everything were going by the normal process that it usually does. However, we know that there's going to be adjustments made due to all of the considerations that have come up. One thing I know that they've been talking about is attendance being shifted, because that used to be a big marker. So I figure if the more that we know now of how the process usually is, when there's adjustments, when there's shifts, that you guys will have this background information so that you know how to move forward when they make those adjustments. So just keep that in your mind while we're thinking about all of these things. So tonight we're going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to talk about just an overview of how the process works and the timeline of how that carries out. So that includes the specialized high schools, as well as the high school directory and admissions guide for the public schools. I'm going to go through a little bit of how you can explore those schools and programs through the My Schools site. And then kind of connected to that timeline, we're going to talk about what your next steps for the summer and the fall will look like, and then we'll wrap up with questions. So the high school admissions process can seem very complicated and overwhelming, but when we look at it like this, there's really 2 paths for applications for public high schools in New York City. So you'll see on the left, there's a required path that all of our students, 7th grade students, which will be 8th grade students, will go through in the fall. And then there's just this one little, to the right, you'll see in the blue, the optional path. And so first I'm going to start talking about the optional path, which is the specialized high schools. And then I'm going to go back to the required side so that we know what everyone will have to do. So first, what are the specialized high schools, right? So the specialized high schools are these ones listed below. There's 8 that require a test, which is known as the Specialized High Schools Admissions Test, also known as the SHSAT. And there's the one school that is by audition, which is the infamous LaGuardia, which has their own auditions for every studio, like dance, art, drama, those kind of things. So because we're talking about this early, we can talk a little bit about preparing for the specialized high school test. On the DOE's website, they have a full PDF booklet of test prep and how to prepare and practice tests. I also know some families have children in programs that are doing those practice and study preparations for that. As everything, you know, like every test, it's better to know how it's structured and how it works so that you can be best prepared. But what I really want to make sure that you guys are aware of is that over the summer, while you're thinking about specialized high school, if that's something that you want, registration for that is in very early October, like the first week of October. So it's good to start having those conversations at home if that's something that your child wants to do, take the test and apply for the specialized high school, because right when we get into school in the fall, I'm going to be asking everyone, do you want to apply? Do you want to register for the test, so that I can follow up with the next steps? So the other specialized high school is LaGuardia, right? And there's auditions. So within the auditions, you can audition to various of the studios. So there's 6 studios, and each of them have a different audition requirement. One set of feedback from the 8th grade families this year is that auditions, whether it's LaGuardia or other arts and performing arts schools, a lot of the weekends for the auditions overlap. So again, this is why we're talking about these things early, so that if your child does want to apply for LaGuardia, that you're thinking about what those auditions are and thinking about other audition schools, because if you have a lot, it's going to be a lot of overlapping dates. So again, just like the other specialized high schools, you have to apply to register for the auditions in early October. So that's why we want to make sure that if that's something that your child wants, that you're thinking about it and are prepared early. So that is the right side, the blue side, the optional side. So that applying to specialized high school is something that it's if you want. All children do not have to apply for it. They don't need to audition or take the test. So if that's not for your child, that's perfectly fine. And if it is, you're going to do the blue side, the optional side, as well as the required side of what we're going to be talking about on the left. So all students are going to apply to public school through this application process. And so on the left-hand side, you'll see, right, we have over 700 programs in New York in 400 plus high schools. So it can seem, again, why we're starting early, really overwhelming to think about all of the options and choice. So you'll see on the top left here, there's an image of what My Schools, the website, myschools.nyc looks like. On the bottom right is what the physical guide usually looks like. I actually looked on the website today to see if there was any PDF version of that, and there is not yet. So as we get more information about a PDF version or if books are being sent home, I will definitely let you know. I know for some people, the computer is hard to navigate through and that you rather like cross things out and highlight and those kind of things. But what we're really looking for this summer with your student and your family is to narrow it down from those 700 plus programs and 400 schools to 20 to 30 programs that interest you. You'll see when I go further into looking at what My Schools looks like, it gives you an opportunity to like star them, which adds them onto a favorites list. Because what ultimately we will want by December is a list of 12 choices. So I'm going to get to that a little bit further. But once we have that bigger list of 20 to 30, when we narrow it down to 12 in the fall, it will be much easier. And just important to note that right-hand side, the optional side of applying, the specialized high schools are not included in that 12 choice programs. So again, this is what the My Schools website looks like. It's all online. If you have used My Schools before to apply your child to something like middle school or elementary school, your login should be already set up. If you are new to the DOE and haven't had that yet, it hasn't generated new welcome letters for me yet, but as soon as they do, I will make sure to communicate that. But even so, you still are able to explore. I think it might be on the next slide. When you go down to the bottom, you can still look at the high school directory, but when you log into your own account, you can do the thing that I said before is like starring and saving preferences and seeing specific information about your student. Oh, I don't need that. Okay. Let's see. So it doesn't show. Oh, yeah, it does. So when you go down to the bottom on My Schools, it's going to bring you to the Browse the School directory, and it's going to bring you into this screen. Now, I've talked with your students and shared with this tool with them. It allows you to put in your home address and see the schools on the map that come up on the right-hand side. And on the left-hand side, it's going to have a list of those schools. It also allows you to filter by subway line, by the size of the school, so the small, medium, large, the sports that they have, and some other considerations like the borough that it's in and accessibility and things like that. What else you can look into on My Schools is on the left-hand side. So when you click a school, for example, this one, they did FDR High School, it allows you to see more details, right? Where it is, the size of the school, the schedule, and other demographics about the school. So when we're looking in My Schools, you really want to consider all the different kinds of schools and programs that are offered in the NYC DOE, right? There's going to be the performing and visual arts schools, the career and technical education schools that often have a focus on a specific career and technical path. If we have students that are new to learning English, there's schools specifically for that. There's schools that are performance assessment schools, which just means their grading system's a little bit different. There's early colleges, so they're connected often with CUNYs, so students can earn credit, college credit while they're in high school. There's also schools that are new that are also go to the 14th grade, which basically means that they earn an associate's degree. And there's community schools. So the way that the DOE likes to frame the idea about schools and programs is that within a school, there may be various programs. So we have to think about schools separately from the programs because they're like doorways to get in, right? So this is also showing FDR's school. And for example, if you were interested in this school and you just loved it so much, you didn't care whatever program you got in, you could technically on this put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different programs within this school on your application out of the 12 choices. So it's really important to think about it that there may be multiple programs within a school that count as one of the choices on the application. It's just showing you a deeper dive into what the programs look like. It's going to give you a little summary of what it is. It's going to show you first up on the top in the blue, the admissions method, which I'm going to talk about in a second. Then it's going to talk about the priority groups. So often this has to do with the borough or district and how the school chooses by that priority. And then it's also going to tell you about the demand, right? So the demand on this right-hand side is going to tell you how competitive it is to get into that school. So obviously the higher number of applications per seat, the more competitive the school will be to get into. And so as far as that admissions method that was in the blue before, I think I can go back, yeah, that's on the blue there, is also important to really consider. There's schools that are not going to look at a child's school record, which school record means grades, attendance, and test scores. So on the left-hand side, you're going to see the open schools, the screen for language. Those are the students that are usually new to the country or are learners of English, zone schools, and then testing schools. And then there's schools that are going to look at the child's school record and it's going to be screened, auditioned, or what's called educational option. Now this educational option is very complicated, but basically it means it's looking for different students with different kinds of grade and test score tiers. It's a bit complicated, but when you look into the specific school, it will be more clear. Also important to note, let me go back a little bit. See, when we see here, it also talks about seats for general education and for students with disabilities or students with IEPs. And what's important to note is schools are required to have seats specifically for children with IEPs. But what's also important to note is that if your child has an IEP, and let's say they just have a related service like speech or OT or counseling, that does not designate them as a student with disability. That would be for the general education seat. And Ms. Reveron is here tonight, so if you have specific questions about IEPs and getting into high school, we can talk about that more. But just it's something to keep in mind when you're looking to make the application for your child. Okay, so the selection criteria for those screened schools. So if a school is screened, you're going to see, like I said, on this right-hand side, it's going to look at grades. So they're going to look for usually a bandwidth of grades. This one that they pulled is from 90 to 100. They're going to look at standardized test scores. Now, this is an element that is we don't really know due to COVID. To be determined what they're going to do about the test scores. I mean, of course, we're not going to have them from this year, so I'm guessing they're not going to be able to look at that, but we don't know yet. And this school, for example, is asking for a portfolio of student work. Some schools look for, they have like an essay question that they have, and some schools, even beyond the specialized high school, like Bard, for example, has a test. Okay. So when we're creating what they call a balanced application for high school, it's really taking into consideration a lot of things, right? It's taking into consideration what's best for your child and family when it comes to terms of traveling and interest level. But it also is kind of that tricky part of having schools that are competitive and also ones that are less competitive. It kind of is like college when you're applying for college sometimes when you're thinking of those like reach schools, the middle schools, and the safety schools. It's the same kind of idea for high school. You want to have a mix of admissions methods, right? So not only you want to looking at the seats, but how they're looking at your child. So maybe you want some screened programs, but also maybe you want to have some that are open. And that you want to make sure that your child is in the priority group for some of those programs. So you don't want to apply to all schools that prioritize Manhattan and the Bronx, let's say, and you know that you're second or third priority because you're in Manhattan. or you don't want them to apply for schools that are just for certain districts when your district is not included. Oh, and last but not least, and it says you only want to apply to programs that your child wants to attend. And that's there because sometimes what happens is people put together an application and then they put some school that they didn't really think about as the 12th choice. And then that's the choice that comes up at the end of in March. And that's what their child gets matched to. And they're like, we don't even know what that school is. So you really want to make sure that you're clear of what schools are on your list, because as you'll see, I think it's in my next slide, the probability of your child getting into one of those 12 schools is very, very likely. I heard the bleep of the question, and I'm wondering if someone's asking, Ms. Feeney, do you need to have 12 choices? And the answer for that is tied into this. So we recommend putting 12 programs onto your application because of the high likelihood, you see 98% of students who list the 12 programs are going to get into one of those. Now, technically, you could put 1 choice, 2 choices, 3. But what happens is, if your child does not get matched through the lovely computer system to one of those programs on the application, the Department of Education is going to choose for your child and family where your child would be attending high school. And so my recommendation is always to have more, because you don't want them to make the choice for you. I really think that it's better that you all have the voice and choice. It's also really important to make sure that your programs are in order of preference, so that the numbered order matters. So you want to make sure that number 1 is the top choice, 2 is second, third, and so forth, because the way that the computer system is going to select students is based on that priority order. Back in the day, it used to be a concern because people used to think that different schools could see what priority ranking you put their school in, and that's not the case. It's really just the computer these days looking. So no school will know if you put them second, third, or fourth. And that's important because a lot of times when you go to like the high school fairs or go to visit, they'll be like, make sure you put us number 1. And it makes you feel like if you don't put them as number 1, they're not gonna match with you. And that's not really the case. So we've kind of went through the right-hand path, the left-hand path, and so now we want to talk a little bit about timeline. So it says early fall, but we're starting really ahead, and we're in late spring of the year before, is really getting used to and getting the idea of all the different schools available, so that when we get to the fall, that we have those 20 of 30 choices to narrow down to the 12. Because in late fall, we'll submit that application. It's usually the first week of December that we submit the application with the 12 programs and possibly the specialized high school. And then in March, on a date that they never tell us ahead of time, they just magically come down one morning and send me an email that makes me nervous, and then I pass on the information to you, is your child will get 1 offer. Oh, it circled it for me, nice. So offer letters in March will provide 1 match from one of the high schools on the left-hand side in that red. And then also if your child has applied to a specialized high school or LaGuardia, they could potentially get matched to 2, because they will always get 1 choice, but the specialized high school also can be an option. And then what's gonna happen is under those matches is going to be the wait list. So basically what happens is if your child gets matched to their number 5 choice, they're automatically going to be put on the wait list for number 1 through 4. If your child gets placed with their 12th choice, they're automatically going to be put on the wait list for the 1st through 11th. Now, for example, let's say your child gets matched to their number 1 choice, but then they had a change of heart. You could always go back later on and add yourself to the wait list to another school, but it automatically puts you on a wait list on your preferences above the school that you got in. My schools also allows you to see the status of that waitlist over time. This is a little bit more extensive into the waitlists. That's a little bit more information than you need right now. But what I really want to make sure everyone knows, because in the past for middle school and elementary school, you would get matched to multiple schools, and that's really not the case anymore. You're always getting matched, even in middle school now, to only 1 choice, and the rest is waitlist. So really keep that in mind when you're creating the application. So here's a little bit of a timeline for you guys. So in the fall and over the summer, you can start looking at My Schools. You can start exploring the idea of the specialized high school test and LaGuardia. and the audition for that. And what the expectation and the hope is that we come into fall in the next school year with a list of 20 to 30 programs of interest. And then what's going to come down the pipeline, whether we're virtual or in person, is they usually have high school fairs and visitations of the schools. So they have a calendar that they send out, and then each borough has like a fair of all of the schools that are invited. So they usually have 2 fairs in every borough. Again, we don't know the information about this or what would happen if we were virtual, but I will continue to follow up once I know. And so then in November and December, right, people are going to start taking those specialized high school tests or doing the auditions for LaGuardia. Other schools have testing or essay requirements or auditions if it's performing arts. And then that first week of December, on my schools, that application will need to be submitted. I really work in collaboration with you guys to make sure it gets submitted. I will be following up. I'm sure you'll be getting emails all the time, and directly with your student as well, because it can be submitted by you on my schools, and it also can be submitted by me. And also it can be submitted from one of the family welcome centers. But usually between us, we really can figure it out. And like I said, I think especially because our 7th graders, almost 8th graders, moving on to high school, I really try to get them involved. You as families, I really want to make sure you're on board because you are going to have to be with them with that 4-year experience in high school. But I really try to put it onto the students a bit too, to explore, to research, to understand. And I hope that the little work that we've already done so far, that they can speak to how that's been going for them and what they've learned so far. But I really see it as a collaboration between all of us to really make sure that we put together the best application possible. So for more information, if you are interested, you can obviously look on the DOE's website about high schools. My Schools is really your best place to go to. You can get on an email list from the DOE, but honestly, if you have the My Schools account, it's going to automatically update you via emails. And then the Office of Student Enrollment is always available to you as well from a bigger DOE stance. So I'm going to come back to you guys and look at everyone and let people turn on their mics and look at the chat. So give me a second.
Ms. Feeney, I'd like to add in, this is Ms. Ferdinand, that I know that the DOE puts everything on My Schools and you're able to look through the schools that are offered. Yep. But I highly encourage you to also go to the school websites. Highly coveted schools also have their own type of sometimes quota that they want you to do, and they'll only have it on their websites. So for people who are assertive and go look at their websites, you'll be aware that it's there. But if you don't look or you look too late, then the window may close. So sometimes they may have like open houses or applications, side applications that they want you to fill, little things like that. Ms. Feeney, maybe you can go into that a little bit more. But the point is like, don't just only go to the Department of Education website and a school that you're interested, also go to their website and just peruse around and see if there's anything there. It wouldn't be hidden. It would be on their admissions page, but sometimes they have little things that they want you to do to show that you're interested in their school.
Yeah, and so from My Schools, the links to their website should be in there. Sometimes they're not updated, so definitely check their website out. And I think something that's hard to say, especially with the unknown of how things are going to move forward, those school visits are so important. And virtually, a visit to a website can give you a look and feel of the school, the language that they use, the pictures of the kids, the things that they offer, the things that they highlight, how are their parents and families represented. But if hopefully we're able to visit those schools in person, it's also really important because it gives you just so many small anecdotes of is the school clean? How do they treat you when they walk in? How do they answer questions? Was the principal and assistant principal at the welcome night? So you really want to think about when you've narrowed that list down to really get specific about the schools and what they offer, and to Ms. B's point of what they're looking for from you. To that point of there's those little tests or the essay questions or times that you can go and visit or things that they expect from you as families. especially the schools that are the more highly coveted schools. Great. So I'm going to look at the chat real quick. Let's see. Okay, so.
Oh, we have a question, Ms. V.
Oh, okay. You have a question? Go ahead.
Yes, I have a couple of questions actually, but one of them was a slideshow that that you presented. I didn't have an opportunity to write down the types of schools that are available. I don't know if that's information that we'll find in the 2020 New York City High School Admission Guide, but I would like to, have a snapshot of the types of schools before we go down the road of, looking for what school fits.
Perfect. So I will follow up with an email that has an attachment of the presentation and a link to me speaking over the presentation too, because we're recording this. So either way, you can look to it. And if you still have questions, you can follow up with me via email. I'm sure the DOE has some information, but I've modified their presentation a little bit. So I'll share that with you so you have it.
Wonderful. And then my other question was, can we meet with you along the way? I know that you're going to be busy with the other students in the 7th grade going through the, or 8th grade then at that time, going through the high school application process. But I was just wondering, like, if we have questions as parents or need, further guidance, can we meet with you, like set up meetings next year?
Of course. Yeah, so that's why I start the conversation early. So that I have enough of me for all of you. I'm putting my email in the chat too, so you can email me that way.
Got it.
And when I follow up with the email with those resources, you'll have it there. But definitely, many of our 8th grade parents, I sat down and met with them and their child and talked about the list and the order and the preference and all of the different things. So I'm definitely happy to do that. I usually like to also, with Tasso, I'm sure I'll consult with him directly. So we can all work together to make
Wonderful
it for him.
And then my last question is, finding the best fit for each student's strengths. Are there any tools out there that can help us as parents know? Like, I know what Tasso loves to do in his free time, and I know his strengths, but when it comes to applying to the schools, I don't know if there are more than just like one engineering school that will accept him if that's what he would like to be, you know what I mean? Or is there another, is there something else as a strength that he might enjoy, like performing arts, although we haven't really discussed that.
I'm not sure, I'm not aware of like a specific tool, but I think that there's definitely what I can give you. And if you guys are all interested, I can give what is similar to, Ms. Reverend will be familiar with, like a vocational interview that we do with students. That's basically, forward thinking of college and careers, of what is your child interested in and what would they like to pursue and what are they strong at now and what interest areas do they have that they haven't been able to explore. And then so once that gives you a better idea, you can use that My Schools, like, let's search every engineering school just to see. And we can narrow some of the ones that we don't think are very strong, but maybe these are 2 that we want to visit. But yeah, I can definitely share a resource about, like, it's considered like an interview with your child to kind of explore the different paths that he or she may be interested in. Oh,
wonderful.
Everyone says they're already online, so I will make sure I link you guys up with that.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go back to the top, and I see we have some questions through the chat. So first, the question was about students with disabilities criteria, and all of that is based on the IEP. So the information that My Schools is going to get, as well as the DOE, is all through what we have in the system through the IEP, and that's how it's going to know. Let me see. Okay, yeah, and Ms. V already jumped in a little bit and was saying, right, so if you go back to that student with disabilities slide, it's that it has to be a certain percentage of having special education services. So I gave the example, like if your child only has related services like speech, OT, those kind of things, it wouldn't be considered. But if they were to have a smaller class size or had ICT, that it would be considered a student with disabilities seat. Now, that's something that if your child has an IEP and you would like to discuss that further, that's why Ms. Reverend's here, but also it's in further discussion of how that IEP is implemented as the years go on. So feel free to continue that conversation with us in terms of how it would relate to high school. All right, I see that, I think Hunter's mom has a question. Oh, you're muted. Looks like some connectivity. If not, you can always. Oh, there you go.
Oh my God, this is like so much drama. I can't see these platforms. How's everybody doing? You know, I have a question. What percentage of kids, the 8th graders, got into their #1 choice? And like, what schools did they get that most of them got accepted into? Does that make sense?
Okay. I don't know. I don't think I have that data fact off the top of my head. But there's
like the most.
There's a range of where students got in. And I think it has to really do with the kinds of schools that kids were looking for. And I think it's really important to think about, like, our 8th grade class currently, I actually think is very different than our 7th grade current class, both in interest levels and also, academics. So I think it would be hard to compare them. The one learning I would say I would have from the 8th graders in asking them for their feedback and talking to families is really just wishing that there was more time to look into things. And that's why we're starting so early this year, because it becomes so quick and families feel, especially the performing arts kids, the auditions come on top of each other all the time. So you really want to make sure if you have an audition situation that you're planning that out. But the other thing is that the waitlist process is what makes it difficult for families to make a final decision, right? So you get that one match, but a lot of our students are also high up on waitlists of schools that they would prefer to attend. So those waitlists are all the way open into September. And if you can imagine the situation we're currently in, those waitlists are moving much slower, I've noticed. There's not a lot of movement on them because I think people just aren't thinking about that as much. And so because what happens, right, is they're waiting for one person to confirm so another seat opens up. And so the finalization of where children are going to go to high school isn't fully confirmed. So that's part of the reason why it makes it difficult for me to fully answer that question, if that makes sense.
Yeah, did any kids get into performing arts schools?
We had a couple, yeah.
However, I just want to preface that decisions aren't finalized yet. So families still are making those decisions now. So we won't have finalized answers until the fall of next year.
Yeah. But yeah, we had a lot of students that did a bunch of auditions, put together portfolios. So, but the auditions are always on top of each other. So please plan accordingly. Okay, let's see. How will grades look and work for applications? So excellent question that I don't have the answer to. We don't know yet. I wish that I did, but as I know, I will make sure that you all know. We don't really know. So part of giving this presentation is being very cognizant that we don't know and we're going to have to sit with that. But I wanted to make sure that you guys had some awareness going into the summer because, again, the fall comes fast and it comes quick and you got to make decisions. So whether or not they make changes, we're still going to have to submit applications. Kids are still going to go to high school. So we really don't know. I wish I had that information. The only tidbit that I have received is about attendance. Attendance is something that they apparently are not going to look at because that used to be something that they would look at in the past, but that's going to be the one thing apparently that they waive. Any other questions? All right. Oh, thank you. So I have my emails there, Ms. Revron's emails there as well. I really want to make sure that you guys know that I'm here to talk things through. We can email, we can talk on the phone, we can even do another video chat. And also look to your students. I'm really putting a lot of responsibility on them to do the work. This is going to be their high school. So as much as we love your family and support, we want them to really to be confident in the choices that they're making and understanding how the process works. Because moving forward in life, right, an application like process like this is going to be very similar if they decide to move on to things like college. So we really want to make sure that they know how a complicated process works and how to make choices for them based on their own needs, wants, desires, balanced with yours as family members. Last chance for questions, thoughts, concerns. Ms. Revron, do you want to, did I miss anything about students with disabilities?
No, I just am very honored that, you know, these parents are so proactive in their ideals in relation to how important, you know, education is, and this is the foundation. So just want to thank the parents for their interest. I love seeing the students here too. This is your life. Start reading up on so many options that we have in New York City. Great high schools. But sometimes it's a little overwhelming when you have too many choices. And so now it's a good time during the summer to start reading up on some desired, you know, interests. Thank you so much, parents and students.
Thank you so much. And I will follow.
One more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there anybody at the school who helps create these portfolios that you're saying some schools recommend or ask for? How do we, like, have you guys been saving stuff, or should I have been?
So it's often for ELA that if it's a school that's asking for an essay, we definitely collaborate with the ELA teachers to make sure that we get that. And worked a lot with Mr. Gripe this year to get those. So you don't have to worry and look through all the papers to find something. If you need something for a portfolio, please let us know. Also for art portfolios, if there is any students that are interested in doing that, please let me know. If it's not someone specifically in the school, I have some other ideas of who can help with those kind of art portfolios. But when it comes to the portfolios of work, we definitely can work together on that. Manhattan Center is one that asks. The iSchool, just top of my head, they often ask for those written pieces, and we're happy to do that. School Performing Arts, a portfolio of art. Yeah, usually it's like 8 to 12 pieces with different kinds of art. I am not an artist. You do not want me to help you with that, trust me. But I will find you someone that will help you. So please let me know if that's the case. But yeah, don't worry about digging through old assignments and crinkled papers. I'm sure we also have something virtual that we can make sure that we can spruce up and make it look nice for the schools. All right, so I'm going to follow up with you guys with the email with this presentation. Also,
I'm sorry to interrupt, Miss Feeney.
Yeah.
I think Miss V wants to be unmuted, but you're the facilitator. I don't know if you can do it or if she has to do it.
I didn't mute her.
No, I know you didn't mute her. I think she's just muted. I think Miss V, you got to unmute yourself.
Yeah,
You can't do it.
Okay, I got it.
Oh, there you go.
It always disappears. I don't know. Okay, no, I just wanted to say about the portfolios because this question came up last year as well. So I know that we had some students in the past had help with the portfolio for theater with Miss Kramer, and then also anyone who goes into fine arts and that's an interest area. I do know for a fact that we have TC that can help us, and we can get recommendations and support from TC staff to help the students create portfolios. So if we don't have the resource, as Ms. Feeney was saying, but I want to assure you guys, we will make sure we get the resource to help support our students in creating a portfolio.
Yeah, portfolios of work when it's academic is usually written.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because we have a lot of things on Google Docs and things. Usually, you know, I'll say, hey, Mr. Greif, I need a essay or I need a creative writing piece, and he'll be like, oh, look at this one. He's like, and he'll be like, I'll make extra corrections and let them revise it one more time. So, no problem at all when it comes to that.
And just guys, I really want to empower you and your students. Like, this is, you know, there's a lot of information out there, but the whole premise is that once you start figuring out where you want to go, to really start learning about those schools so you can make sure that you are able to create the portfolio that they're looking for, so that you can have the opportunity and choice to attend those schools. So if there's something that you know these schools are really looking for, make sure that you consult with Ms. Feeney and your teachers and staff, and we'll make sure that you have opportunities so that you can have that and get that put into your portfolio and into your transcript, because that's the key. You have to see what these schools are really looking for to be able to see that you really want to go to their school. And so if we start this process now, then you have knowledge to know what it is that you have to do to get the opportunities and choice that you want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I'd say the in-person is so important, but if we can't be in person, do the research online, even, see if you can email the counselor at the school, those kind of things, because making those connections and asking deeper questions, it just shows about what kind of family you are, what kind of student you are, and they give you little tidbits, of the things that you need to know. So the more that you're connecting, especially with those schools that are of high interest and that are more competitive, it's really important to do those little extra steps. All right, so I will follow up by tomorrow with an email with the slides, with this recording, and the vocational assessments that we were talking about a little bit. You'll also have my email. Feel free at any time to reach out. I'm happy also to schedule times to speak deeper. But I'm really excited to get to work with all of you, get to know you families instead of just the students. So to know you guys all a little bit deeper and where your children will be going for high school and beyond. So I'm really excited for that. And I really appreciate you all joining us tonight. And thanks so much.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, Feeney. Bye, everybody.
Bye,
Bye, Evangeline.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good
Bye,
night.
guys. Good night.
Everybody.
Bye, Miss Feeney. Bye, Ross.
Bye,
Bye,
Miss
Rowan.
Berger. Thank
Bye,
you.
bye,
Figure
everybody.
out how to hang up. That'd be great.
I don't either. Bye, guys. Nice to see you.